Good afternoon, friends. Thank you so much for coming by. Normally trained very well at home to respond to questions. So for a change, I think I'm given an opportunity to seek responses. So that's great. I hope I do a good job. To start with, if I can, maybe in 30 seconds, allow each of you to introduce yourself, and that maybe help all of them to prompt questions correctly and appropriately. Is that a fair start? We will try and keep this as practical as possible. One, because of course I've only done high school and I jumped on a ship, so I'm not qualified to ask too many intelligent questions. So we'll keep it practical. We will come down to the ground and talk a little bit about what's actually happening and what we could do. So if I can start with Francis, if you can introduce yourself a little bit.
Yes, my name is Francis Zachariae. I'm the Secretary General of Ayala. And it's a fantastic pleasure to be here. And if you allow me, I would like to thank the Maritime Port Authority of Singapore for organizing this amazing event every year. In Ayala, we organize many big events, and I know how much work goes into that. So I guess on Monday, you will start preparing for the next year event. So amazing job. Thank you so much. And I'll pass the microphone. Oh, you have one.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ming Fa Liu. I work for IMC as the Managing Director of Ship Services. My background, I'm an engineer. I used to sail for IMC many, many years back. And all my career has been in the ship management, ship services background. And being an engineer, I've always been passionate about the maritime technology. And I'm really privileged to be on this panel and to share ideas with everybody, but essentially for me to learn from all of us in this meeting room. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Hideki Ando. Firstly, it's my great pleasure to be part of this excellent panel. My background is naval architect and educated as naval architect, and then I joined shipyards and work in University of Tokyo as an associate professor. Since 2005, I have been working in this MTI. It's a R&D arm of NYK line, and nowadays we are basically running a lot of projects. A lot of means like 100 projects annually. But nowadays, actually, the main subjects are, of course, like a decarbonization and also safety aspects, and including this smart ship and autonomous ship. So, yeah, thank you. That's my background.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure for me to be here. Pierre Sam is my name from DNV. I'm long-serving with DNV for 27 years. I'm also naval architect by education and previously have been the research director of DNV. Today I'm working in the maritime business area as strategic development director. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think this will give us a perspective on what question should go to whom, maybe. As you can see, I don't generally follow rules, so please allow me to break this a little bit. So how we want to start is maybe look at trends first and what's happening in smart shipping, maybe from a trend perspective, go up a little bit. And then maybe the next phase, we will talk a little bit about how that's influencing the way smart ship is being developed. And then maybe at the last, see what's actually happening on the ground and what's a little bit of a takeaway that we can take from this discussion, and we hopefully can go and implement something. If that's a fair way to start. Pierre, maybe I'll request you to go first and saying, okay, I know you've talked a lot, many years, and I know that you're active in an R&D space. So what do you think are the trends that's happening around smart shipping, because of which you think that this whole smart shipping will get accelerated going forward? What's your view on this, and what are these major trends?
Yeah, thank you, Captain Oni. Well, first and foremost, I think it is connectivity. That's, you might say, the key enabler to smart shipping and future shipping. And this is increasing high bandwidth availability at decreasing costs. And this is enabled and facilitated by larger number of deployed satellites, in particular those constellations that are being deployed these days. And that provides global coverage for remote assets, for ships, but also for other assets, by the way. And we have been talking about this, I believe, for a decade at least, but it's happening now. It's happening in this decade that all the remote assets will be connected. They will become connected like things that are just next door. They will become connected like machines on a factory floor. And that will enable a huge wave of optimization potential. And you can argue this is coming at the right moment in time because it needs to contribute to the decarbonization journey of this industry. So that's, I believe, by far the most important trend. And then you could say below the radar screen, there's something happening that is a slow but increasing development of autonomous ship technologies. And we are coming back later to it in more detail. But let me just say that at IMO, the work on the so-called Maritime Autonomous Surface Ship Code development has started. And according to the regulatory roadmap, in 2024, there will be a voluntary mass code, and by 2028, potentially a mandatory mass code available. And I believe that sort of sets the timeline for enabling the technologies and the regulatory space for the next step in smart shipping, which might be autonomous shipping. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Pierre. I think I can't agree more with you with all this Starlink and, you know, there's a lot of discussion about mid-Earth orbits and all that, and instability of LEO. So given that, Anderson, if I can come to you next, given that you work a lot with Nippon Foundation and autonomous tech and all that. So what do you think of these mega trends that's happening in trying to get to smarter shipping from your perspective?
Yep. Thank you, Captain Uni, for your question. Yes, we ran demonstration last year in February and March, and that was, I think, it's quite successful demonstration we could achieve in that Nippon Foundation's project. And actually, there are 5 consortium under the Nippon Foundation program, and actually we are leading one of the big one, actually, the DFAS consortium. And there, actually, between Tokyo and Nagoya Bay, it is about approximately one way, about like 200 miles or something. And then in total, the average 98.5% fully autonomous navigation was conducted. Of course, there are crews. Of course, we have regulations and so on. But still, as far as technology goes, actually the maturity of the technology is actually very much good level already. But of course, it's a demonstration. So I mean, it's a bit, of course, very different from commercial operation and products. But at least in the research and development perspective, actually, I think it's already technology quite good level. Probably TRL level would be like a 7 or something like that. And then actually what we experienced in that project, actually we spent about 2 years for design and construct and install and then demonstration for 2 years. It is actually very different process if I compare to the conventional approach. That means like it's kind of like a collaborative system integration. So we define something very new concept. It's with very strong requirements from the captains and the chief engineers. Then we run together the good concept together with equipment manufacturer. Then that concept is gradually developed and then installed and demonstrated. And then we apply many technologies, but the methodologies. But anyhow, how we tackle this complex system is what we observed through that Nippon Foundation's program. That is our experience.
Thank you, Anderson. I think something coming clearly out is that one, you think this autonomous tech in itself is, gone quite a bit. And second, you also said something interesting, which is about finding the right partners to collaborate. I think that's interesting. And Francis, if I might come to you next, given this, we obviously talk a lot about, tech on ship and data and all that. But I also believe that, in the last panel, people talked about ship-shore interfaces and how do you see, given we're talking about autonomous navigation right now with Anderson, from your perspective, how do you see that this, how can the infrastructure ashore be built such that there is a better way to exchange data, better way to exchange intelligence, such that you can fast track or facilitate autonomous navigation, especially in ports and in and around harbors. What's your take? What's the trend do you see there?
Yeah, thank you very much. That's really a major trend. And as you know, IALA is the international organization for coastal states. The maritime authorities all around the world, like the MPA, are our national members. And the major challenge for us is to prepare these members for the future of smart ships when it comes to H2 navigation in a broad term and vessel traffic service, as you mentioned. And in IALA, we have two main goals. We develop and we harmonize. That is what it's all about in IALA, development and harmonization. And it is actually a trend and a great challenge to prepare the world's maritime authorities for the future digital maritime environment, as our chair mentioned. Much of the information, as you mentioned, from the ship that is produced on board the ship and is used on the ship will have to be delivered from ashore in the future. And from the coastal state, the coastal authority, or the VTS center. In IALA, we like to call the VTS centers as the front office of e-navigation, because they have already all the equipment necessary to provide the ships with necessary information. We heard also the keynote speaker, Mr. Holm from Wärtsilä. He mentioned the enormous potential there will be for transferring the digital information needed from ashore to the ship. Another very important issue for us, development and harmonization, is harmonization. And we heard the last panel that is maybe the main challenge of the maritime world is harmonization. You know, we like to say that everybody wants harmonization, but nobody wants to be harmonized. And that is really the problem, that all these major decisions on harmonizations, they need to be taken in the largest intergovernmental organizations. And if you think that a Secretary General decide a lot of things in an international organizations, it's not completely true, because it's the member state that take the important decisions. And when you like in the IMO, you have 160 member states, and many decisions will be taken by consensus. You can imagine how complicated this is, because there are so many hidden agendas and national agendas are at stake. So it's really an enormous problem. And as you know, shipping is global, and we need global solutions, not national and not regional, but global solutions. And that is an enormous challenge, and it's not the case right now. You know, e-navigation, when we talk e-navigation, it has been developed in projects all around the world, and national or regional projects, like here in Singapore. We have Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, the Sesame project here. It's amazing, it's fantastic, but it's regional. And we have these big projects everywhere in the world, and a big challenge and a trend will be to harmonize all these projects, because they do not speak together. So that's an enormous problem. And I see maybe my last point is a major trend is, we talked about e-navigation for many years, and now I sense that it's G-navigation, where G is green. So we go from e-navigation to G-navigation, and we need to stop to be fascinated about what is possible with digitalization, and we need to focus on what is helpful. And I think all digital solutions, they need to be helpful to shipping, either a good business case or help with regulation like decarbonization. Thank you very much.
No, thanks, Francis. Now that Ming-Fa, maybe, you know, I love interfaces, because even in a human body, there's a lot happens at the interface, even at a cell level. So given that you are actively into the service element, there's a lot of things that happen between a ship and a shore and the interfaces. What do you see as a trend that's happening? We talked about drone delivery and all this stuff, but what are the trends? Is it robotics? Is it UAVs? What's kind of happening? What's the trend that you see at interfaces, ship, show, and services? What kind of trends are you seeing?
I think the biggest trend is that nowadays all the shipping companies, every one of them, are looking at the smart ship, digitalization. And I think that's why we have so many participants in this room, including your company, our company. We are all looking at digitalization as a way forward. So that's the biggest trend. And why we are doing this, I think everyone may have a different approach. But I think we need to start look at from the purpose of this. What is the purpose of the shipping business? What is, why we do all these things? Shipping is most cost-effective, is part of a global supply chain, is the most cost-effective and reliable mode of transportation, moving goods around. So there's a few things from the shipping side I think is important, is that we need to be efficient, we need to be safe, we need to be reliable. And in the past, there's a lot of, as the other colleagues mentioned, all these challenges we have faced in the past. But now I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to overcome the challenges. At this time in the digitalization, smart shipping, I think the center is the data. The data is the center, but there has been a few points in the past. I think the data from the vessel, we need to collect the data from the vessel. I think over the years, the technology advancement, there's a lot of new hardwares and technology. So the connection of the data from the ships becomes not so challenging. But is the transfer of the data from the ship to shore to other ships, I think that has been a big bottleneck. But with the other colleagues just mentioned the new technology, something like Starlink, when it appears, I was really excited because I'm more like comparing this like a mobile phone. Mobile phone during the 2G area, there's a lot of things, it's just impossible. But when there is a 4G area, now 5G, there's a lot more possibilities. But that's the data transfer from the ship to the shore, from shore to other parties. And then the next one is the data analysis. And I think that's where comes play. This is well established. I mean, AI, machine learning, ChatGPT, all these things is much more advanced in other industry than the maritime industry. So I would think that the trend is centered with the data and data connection, data transfer, and data analysis. So there's a huge potential in this landscape. And that's why I think there's a lot of opportunities for all of us to explore. Thank you.
No, thanks, Ming-Fa. I think what you're saying is that we have this connectivity, which I think clearly is going to get a lot cheaper, it's going to get a lot faster, which means there's more possibilities to do things with data. And second, you mentioned about AI, ML, and taking structured, unstructured data and throwing out intelligence that the human mind perhaps could not have thought about. And you talked about ChatGPT and Google coming out. Yeah, it's fascinating, to be honest. I asked my wife not to ask ChatGPT too many questions about me. But having said that, Anderson, what do you think, given this trend, you've gone into autonomous tech, we're trying to move ships autonomous from point A to point B. How do you think this is going to influence what kind of work we need to do as an industry? Where do you think we should focus our energies, given all this, surrounding tailwinds that we are having in terms of mature technology, whether it's cloud or it's IoT, big data,
Yep. Thank you for that. To achieve that kind of development and the actual implementation, I think we need to learn modern engineering methodologies that is used in other industries, such as automotive industries and others, and aviation and railways. Which means, we need more and more control system on board. We need more and more software on board. And then we have to deal with and manage that complexity of systems and also system of systems. And so there are several players provide competitive products. And then that has to be well integrated in some certain manner. That is, we need some structured approach to achieve to such a complex system and system of systems. And that is known actually in other industries, and now actually we are trying to achieve is that what is so-called V model or validation and verification process. And there, actually, firstly we have to think about how this new technology, smart ship technology, be used by whom, like people, and also how that technology be used as a process, or like through a manual or through trainings, and who will manage this all technology and people by organization. So those people, process, organization has to be well thought in the early stage of the development. Then actually with that, so concept is very, very important, and it is if well described, articulated, then actually then following the risk assessment and so on, then probably we enhance that concept, what are the necessary functional requirements and so on. Then that is the manner of the B process, how actually we develop new technology through structured manner. That is what already proven in other industries, and I think we should learn as a maritime industry, and we should follow that manner. That's my comment.
No, thank you, Anderson. You're absolutely right, because I was involved in a small project with HBS, a friend of mine, a professor, and trying to do crowdsourcing on a platform, and it was so challenging to find ways to define the problem statement so accurately when you talk about the V and all that stuff. So I completely aligned here, because that's the most difficult part. Now, Pia, if I, in 2017, I remember going for our first, we were trying to bring the smart ship, collecting data, 5,000 data points every 30 seconds. And we thought we were smart, and I was running on the beach in Korea before the ship's delivery, and I saw Smart Beach. I was quite excited, and I tried going in, finding out there was nobody there. But we use smart a lot, right? In the sense, everything is about smart these days. So if you can help us, Pia, at least maybe you can talk for 2 minutes or 3 minutes, but at least finally can sum it up in one sentence. What's this whole smart ship? What do you think it should be?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the question. And you're right, it's not properly defined. But certainly it is about what is built into the vessel, and also it is about how it is operated. So it's these two things, and it is these two things in combination. And I mean, a possible way to look at it is looking at class societies, looking at class notations for smart ships. So we have one at DNV, and that refers to those technologies. So for example, to the data collection that it has to be built in, that's a crucial component that has to be on place. But also things like autonomous technologies and more basic things like electronic logbooks, for example. But it also looks at elements of procedures. And then we are looking at data quality management, we are looking at cybersecurity resilience management, we are looking at being prepared for data-driven verification. So it is that sort of combination, as I mentioned, of what is built in and how the crew and the onshore personnel is prepared of using it that would define a smart ship today. Thank you.
Thanks, Pia. That's helpful, definitely, to set context. And Ming-Fa, maybe if I can come to you on a follow-up on that, in the sense, you talked a lot about analytics in the sense. I feel there's so much noise in the industry. You talk about data is the new oil. I'm afraid that maybe we are creating more faster caterpillars and not a butterfly. And then we hope that transformation will happen. So if you talk about, sorry to phrase that way, but if you talk about how do we drive insights from the data that we pick, right? Because that was one of the things that you suggested is the trend, and we need to drive it. Because I genuinely believe that only when you draw insights, you will be able to change the way people behave and act. So how do you see that happening in your realm of work? How are you using data? What is interesting in the data? What can you do with the data? How can you use data to help change people in the way they behave and act?
That's a difficult question to just cover in a short period of time. But I think from our perspective, IMC as a bit special role, and we are a ship owner, we are a ship operator, and we are trying to be a ship manager, service provider as well. From my last word at starting from the purpose, why we do this business, and I think each of our businesses have a slightly different objectives. And then we also have different pain points. And from our commercial department, from our operations department, our technical department, we have a different pain points. And a lot of them also we need to collaborate. And in the past, our industry, maritime industry, be more like experience-based. And they always, I think a lot of people will agree with me, there's a lot of a silo approach and resistant to share information. So this, I think, is a starting point for us to have the data, to have the new technology to help us. But I think there's 4 areas I would look at. Is that first is safety. We need to operate our ships safely, and the new modern technology can help us a lot on that. The second is the reliability, because that's again the condition monitoring of our vessels. That's a very important. Ensure the reliability of our ship from A to B, and efficiency. When I'm talking about efficiency, that covers all this aspect of our, not only the technical part, but also the operations and also the commercial part. Because being a ship operator, we have to ensure our ships and the transport the goods from A to B at the most efficient way. So you will need to think about the vessel performance, the fuel consumption, and the route optimization, and also the maintenance of the ship. And nowadays, there's more and more that we look at sustainability. But we essentially, as a business, we all need to operate the most efficient way. And of course, sustainability, we also talk about, that's really one of the major topics nowadays we're all getting to. But as I said, essentially, the data, the digitalization is one of the most important tools that we can work together, even internally in an organization like ourselves in a company, but also with the stakeholders in the whole industry. Without this technology, it's very difficult for us to do that. So that's why I think this is a really exciting time that we can all work together. Thank you.
No, so if I hold me honest here, and if I sum your message, it's that work on safety, reliability, efficiency, and sustainability. Is that use data to try and work on these 3-4 things? Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, this is the 4 areas, but also practically, operating is like vessel performance and the route optimization, sure, and maintenance, preventive, the maintenance, all this. So these are the practical issues that we have to use technology to help us.
Sure. Thanks, Ming-Fa. Now, Francis, if I can come to you, given what Pierre said, the context about cybersecurity and all that, now we're talking about a digitally connected world. I remember many years ago, a Greek ship owner friend of mine called me, and one of his ships, the Masters, went a little bit off radar, and he found an LPG tanker getting into India. We found it very challenging, and frankly, we had to call the Indian Navy to try and intervene, to be honest. And now we have a different challenge if we have so much of connectivity and all that. So obviously, your organization is focused on safe navigation and all that. So how are we going to address this? Because there's a lot happening in that ship-shore interfaces, right? So have you thought about it? Is there some trends developing? How is that influencing the way you're thinking about safety or navigation?
Yes, it's a very, very, very important question, of course. And when we talk about digital solutions and smart ships, we have, of course, in Ayala many, many expectations for the future. We see a bright future, but we have also, as you mentioned, many, many concerns. I don't know if you know, but 2017 was the safest year in the history of aviation. We had more than 30 million takeoffs, and there were only 10 accidents in aviation in the whole world. And I read the EMSA, European Maritime Safety Agency's report here lately, and I read that in Europe alone there were 4,000 accidents with ships. So you see there's an enormous difference between aviation and shipping. And in all the 4,000 accidents, 80% were human errors. So we think in Ayala that digitalization in the form of digital assistance to navigation and to the navigator must lead to improved safety at sea. When we look at aviation, where I have a good friend who is a pilot in SAS, and he tells me that he doesn't touch anything. It takes off and it lands, and he's just looking at some instruments in the ship, even a completely modern ship. It's completely different. The navigator is doing everything, and he's watched by echo sounder and very primitive things. So we have to learn from that, and we have to improve safety at sea. We heard that from the ship owner as well. That's a prime thing. But on top of that, so we see a fantastic future for safety at sea. But our concerns are also on top of our agenda, because when the ship getting smarter and the crew smaller and smaller, we are concerned about, for instance, position, navigation, and timing. PNT becomes very, very vulnerable when the ship is almost 100% dependent on GPS or other satellite provided navigation systems, because they are extremely vulnerable. I heard that for 10 euros you can buy a jammer on the internet, and you can completely jam a ship's position. I know many of our members report very, very often that their ships are jammed. The GPS, suddenly the ship move 80 meters to one side, which is of course complicated, even if you have a navigator on board. But think about, you have an unmanned ship and something like that happens. So we are extremely concerned about the vulnerability of GPS, and we are developing, because as I mentioned, develop and harmonization, we are developing in Ayala alternative systems. The most promising one is VDS R mode. It's almost ready. It can use the AIS base station as an alternate system to GPS. So we look very much into that, and that's our main concern, and also great expectations, of course.
Thanks, Francis. So in the interest of time, I know that we have 12.5 minutes, and I think we need to give 5-7 minutes for questions. So if I can request the panelists for one thing on saying, what is those things that we should stop doing in your own experiences? What are the things that you think we should continue doing? I'm sorry, I'm going off the script. That's how I am. Sorry, I'm wired. What are the things that you should continue doing, and what are the things that you should start doing? If we can, in your realm about smart shipping, focus on what are the things that we should, continue, what are the things that you should stop, and what are the things that we should start. And the timer is right in front of you. So if you, between the four of you all, if you can, we can leave the last 7 minutes for questions, it'll be great. Maybe Pierre, I start with you first.
Yeah, I don't think I have answers to all, but certainly when it comes to things that we should start and continue doing, that is focusing on quality data collection on board. That's the key to enablement of delivering that optimization potential that we see with smart shipping. I believe that's the key, giving all other things working as expected. And I want to leave it with that one. Thank you.
Sure. Is there something from your R&D work that we should stop? And you do a lot of R&D, so is there something that I'm just trying to find a way where we all can have some takeaway. You have a lot of things stored here inside your experience, so I'm trying to, get this out. Is there something that you think we should start, given that there's so much R&D that you do? Is there something?
Well, then maybe I want to come back to what Ando-san mentioned regarding learning from other industries. We have been advocating this for quite a while. To use simulation technologies to enable system integration during ship design, and in particular when it comes to the construction and the commissioning. That will certainly help us to have safer ships in the end, with less chances of sudden breakdowns and blackouts due to software errors that inevitably will come with increasing amount of software being on board and in the control systems. So that is certainly an area that we should pay a lot of attention to and start doing.
Thank you, Pierre. I'm sure a lot of people are helpful. Ando-san, we have talked about this a lot for many years. So this question is not new to you from my side. What do you think we should be doing?
Yeah, thank you. Again, I follow. And also, I really agree with Pearson's mentioning. So we need a structured process. We need a methodology, and we need a good standards. So yeah, we have to level up our engineering level, and also we need to. I mean, to achieve that again, we need a good collaboration with like users and also authorities and also all relevant stakeholders to communicate. Otherwise, actually, we cannot define the proper concept. So that is also part of the methodology that I think.
And if I can push back one last one from you, Anderson, if there's something that you think we should stop, you have a lot of experience. I mean, I've failed a lot. If you ask me, I can bring a big list. What do you think is that one thing we should stop doing?
That's a difficult question. As R&D, I normally start.
My wife has trained me very well, Anderson.
But I think, there are, let's say, comparing to other industries, actually, I think there are so many like spread efforts happening, like making some small software type of things. And then, but then in business-wise, in many cases, it does not, fly. So then actually we need some sort of like consolidation. Actually, definitely, yes, we need data and we need all those technology. But I think, the market size is limited. So maybe we need some sort of consolidation, I think, which means somebody have to stop.
Thank you. I tend to agree, Anderson, I think, because it's also fine, we have more entrepreneurs, that's a great thing, but I agree that maybe sometimes it's good to consolidate. Ming-Fa.
Okay, what we should stop, I think we should stop as individual, as company, as an industry, we should stop that thing, I can do it, we can do it, or only our company can do it, only me can do it. We should stop that. What need to start? I think the whole industry, we need to start thinking, training our people, get our people in the office, on the ships, come along, because this progress will be much faster than the past few hundred years. And I'm sure everybody can see what's happening in the world, on the land, and very fast. So we need to get prepared for that. What we need to continue, I think in the room, in the industry, we have a lot of, as I mentioned earlier, and a lot of stakeholders already started the journey, working together. I think that's what we should continue. Thank you.
Thanks, Francis.
Like you, Captain Uni, I'm a simple sailor, so I cannot remember all the three things. Yeah, I can remember. What I think we should stop is that, the e-navigation project started in 2007 in the IMO, and to be honest, I'm very disappointed about the results of all this. The whole world has worked on e-navigation and very, very few results actually. So I think we should stop to be fascinated about what is possible. We should stop the engineers a little bit and do not be so fascinated about what is possible, and then we should focus on what is really helpful. Those few products that can actually help the shipping sector, we should focus more on these things. And we should start to work on digital solution that can help the business case or regulation like decarbonization and so. And we should continue work closely together to harmonize all these solutions, because shipping is global. So we need this, we desperately need this global harmonization. So we should continue like we do, working together in a good atmosphere with trust. Thank you.
Oh, thanks. So just purely by the number of votes, I'm just picking one question out of this. So I think I can read that out. The question is, how can smart ship technologies promote efficiency, sustainability, safety, and resilience in maritime operations? And what are the priorities for further research, development, and implementation? Maybe Pierre, since the R&D question, or Anderson, or Ming-Fa, anybody, whoever feels comfortable, you can pick that question. Anderson.
Yep. Thank you. Yes, actually, for us, I mean, we NYK shipping line promoting autonomous ship, but for us, it's mainly improve safety. That is the main priority. And also actually, especially it is a regional constraint. I mean the condition. But in Japan case, actually, we are facing a lot of like reducing number of potential seafarers for domestic logistic. So that is actually in that given situation. Actually, we need more automation technology. So safety and reduced number of crews. I mean, to complement the reduced number of potential crews. In Japan case, actually, that is a requirements.
Sure. Yeah, you want to add?
Yeah, just on research and development. So at DNV, when it comes to autonomous ship technology, we are very much focusing our efforts on those systems that we would call decision support systems today. They have similar technologies like future autonomous and fully autonomous technologies, but they are not used to control the ship, but only to advise the crew. And one could say that if all ships in our entire fleet would have those kind of advisory and decision support systems installed, we would already have much safer shipping. So I believe that's a clear call to the entire industry to consider using the available technology to advance safety now and don't wait until 2028. Thank you.
You want to take it, Mikko?
Yep. Okay. From my perspective, is promote efficiency. As mentioned earlier, as a ship operator, we are looking utilizing software to help us to monitor the ship performance and the fuel consumption, route optimization. From the technical side, we need to use technology for us to improve the ship management operating efficiency. Which Captain Uli, I think you've done a fantastic job growing this, big management fleet, and you have to be efficient to do that. On this, even I think I also talk from our experience as a chemical tanker operator. Even on the ship operation, one of the biggest challenges is the cargo and tank cleaning. Even that, we are looking at the technologies how can help us to reduce the time between we change from different cargoes, how to optimize the tank cleaning process. So these are some of the areas we're looking at. On the safety side, we also, actually we are already doing some trials with certain technologies. I think one of these, Captain Ice, we've already been doing trials on. Is the purpose is just to ensure the safety of the crew and the ship. So there's a lot of things that we are still we're in the process of doing the trial, and being a ship owner ourselves. So we have the privilege, and we can select from different solutions. We're trying to implement on our ships to just do a test before we can finalize whether this is really useful. So there's a lot of things we are trying at the moment.
No, thank you. So I think this question, I don't know whoever has written this, I thank you for this, because it was a question from my end too. Running a tech outfit a little bit, and the basic question is, how do you overcome the cost barrier of installing sensors on board ships? Because this is a bit of a kind of, I don't know, I hope nobody's recording, it's a bit of a mafia, or I don't know what it is, but clearly data sharing is a big challenge. People all advocate, we want to share data, we want to share data, we want to share data, but the moment we say, okay, why don't you open the keys, and it costs you so much, right? So it's also in a lot of sense preventing people from getting access to their own data. I know a lot of ship owners who say, okay, the ship is mine, but I don't suddenly recall the language of my contract, so the data doesn't belong to me. And if you suddenly want to open the data, then it costs me so much. So how do you think we can overcome this? I mean, happy if any of you can take this question and educate me as well, because I'm looking for a solution also. Maybe go for it.
Okay, that's a really interesting question, and we face this discussion all the time, even amongst ourselves in different departments. But I think the starting point is a business case, and anything comes with a cost. But what you're to get out from the cost. So the business case is essential here. And I think also is, as I mentioned earlier, the people side is we need to understand what we are talking about. The biggest challenge for us is that there's so many solutions, so many technologies, but do I really understand it? I don't. Really, I don't. As an engineer, as a marine engineer, I don't understand so much. So we need to have people really understand what we are talking about. There's vendors coming, there's people giving the cost, but the business case is not just he tells me this is the business case. No, we also need to understand what we are talking about, all this. And the third thing, I think, as any business, monopoly, of course, that's the worst thing in the world. So if you have different operands, I'm sure the cost barrier will not be, always there. Thank you.
Thank you. If I can take that one comment from the three of you before we close. I know we're short of about 30 seconds. Is there anything? How do we lower the cost? How do we get more data?
Yeah, actually, I received this question quite often. So, but as I'm explaining, yes, we need. Of course, we need some good rationale for those technologies. Then why not to run a feasibility study? In NYK case, actually, we operate like a 700 vessels so on. There are so many accidents and so on. Then we need to reduce the number of these accidents, and that will then our feasibility study explain how this technology can reduce that cost by the accidents. So that is, in our case, that is how we communicate with management.
Sure. Francis, you want to go?
Yeah, that was a little bit my point from earlier, that we should focus on what is helpful. And if there's no business case, then don't do it. I mean, if it doesn't serve the business case, then don't install the sensors on board. So I think it all comes to business case. I mean, after all, it is ship owners. They want to earn money. And so if the digital technology, if there's no business case for it, then don't do it. So I think really we should stop doing things that is not helpful or serve efficiency or safety, and focus on what is really a business case helpful.
No, thank you to the panelists. I'm normally quite blunt and straight, and that's how I am. So sorry. Maybe I have to first apologize and thank you for your wisdom. And for everybody out there, thank you for listening to us. And hopefully there is some takeaway. But clearly, I feel data is important, and I hope that the makers and the others who have this data also are listening, and it's a genuine concern. People hopefully can get access to data so that we can drive insights, we can drive safety, we can drive the way we behave and act, whether it's about reliability, creating, I'm sure going forward ships, at least discussions with some of the commercial operators are clear that it's not just going to be a commercial decision alone, because people are also going to look at reliability and safety and sustainability going to be baked in their business and operating model. So I hope that will drive more data sharing and we actually get to a little bit more smarter shipping. But thank you very much. Thank you for your time. I'm sorry we ran 3 minutes late. Thank you.